Well, welcome to Harmonies. Hi, I'm Denise Hurley, and I'm here today with Carolann Solebello from New York City.
Hello.
Welcome, Carolann. So
Delighted
happy
to
you're
see
here.
you. Me too. I'm really so happy to be in a Zoom room with you.
So, so I'm wondering if you could start off with one of your songs.
Oh, sure. This is kind of becoming my theme song. It's a love song to my hometown of
Okay.
Brooklyn, New York. On Henry Street, the blacktop heat will melt your rubber sole. In the evening by the waterside, the bridges turn to gold. Down at the beach, the breakers reach the sand like pink champagne. But nothing moves me half as much as Brooklyn in the rain. The night we met, my shoes were wet and my patience had run dry. You asked me in and wrung me out as lightning crossed the sky. It happened then, I knew it when you walked me to the train. I fell in love with you and then with Brooklyn in the rain. Oh, let it rain. Ooh, we spent our nights beneath the lights on Flatbush Avenue. We rode the drought and did without under skies of blue. Then came the day you blew away in your little hurricane, and I could not tell the gates of hell from Brooklyn in the rain. Oh, let it rain. Ooh, I had no umbrella, sad and soggy Cinderella. Now on Henry Street, I share a seat on the front stoop with the cat. I am content to pay the rent on this brownstone railroad flat. But now and then I think of when you kept me entertained. I do not love you anymore, just Brooklyn in the rain. Oh, let it rain. Ooh, oh, let it rain. Ooh,
Beautiful.
I
Very
happen
nice.
not to be raining today, but tomorrow it will rain.
Yeah, it's supposed to rain here too. So, so what is it? That song is an homage to Brooklyn, or is there more pieces
Yeah.
of that?
Well, I feel very much a sense of place in my life. I've lived in New York City all of my life. I've lived in all of the boroughs except for Manhattan. Uh,
Okay.
Ironically, I've lived in Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, Staten Island, but never Manhattan. I've spent a fair amount of time working in Manhattan, but I have been living in Brooklyn since 1996. So I
Oh,
guess that makes me a Brooklynite. That's a long time. That's
yes.
25 years, I guess
It's a
now,
long time.
almost. Yeah.
So,
But yeah, I have a tendency to be very, there's a lot of songs where the great city of New York will pop up in one way or another in my
sure,
songwriting.
sure. Huh. Great song.
Thank you.
Great
Thank
song.
you. Thank you.
So what have you been doing during these funny times?
I've been doing a lot of nesting.
Okay.
A lot of nesting. I envy and admire my colleagues who've been able to write prolifically during this time and put out records during this time. John McCutcheon put out a whole
Mhm.
album of songs he wrote and recorded during quarantine, and it's fantastic. And it's, addresses the issues and doesn't address issues, funny ones and poignant ones. And I found myself kind of paralyzed in the beginning,
Mm.
artistically.
Yep.
I set up a new routine for myself, but I wasn't really able to write more than a little, just a little bit here and there. I've gotten a few keepers out of the last, it's been 6 months now,
Yeah.
but I'm usually a person who writes regularly. And it was kind of unsettling for me not to be able to write. So instead, I did things like, baking bread like everybody else does, and and cooking elaborate meals. We had just finished a kitchen renovation, so we were pretty lucky in
Yeah.
that regard that we got finished that under the wire, and so I had this beautiful new kitchen to spend all of my time in.
Uh-huh.
And it was a good way to kind of like escape from the world. I wouldn't even listen to the news in the kitchen. I was listening to like books, books on tape while I was cooking and baking and cleaning the kitchen, and just I became a domestic goddess. That's what
Okay.
I've done during and yoga. This is pretty much what I do. I spend a lot of time in the kitchen, and there's a lot of time practicing yoga.
And that feels good for you right now.
It does, it's like yoga was always a part of my life too, but it became, such that I couldn't practice with other people anymore. And that's just weird,
Right.
to do it, all by myself after being used to going to the studio with this same group of people
Right.
almost every day. But fortunately, the people from my studio put the lessons on Zoom pretty much right away. Like they were at least online. They put, the teachers have been teaching online since the beginning, so that was helpful, and it
Mhm.
gave me a structure for my day. I'd get up, sit in meditation with my group and do the yoga with my group online, and then the rest of the day begins.
Yeah.
So it was a very grounding, more grounding than usual practice for me.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's good that you were able to find that for yourself.
New routines,
So, um, so what's your take on the music scene in New York City now? Is there anything happening?
Mostly what's happening, I mean, certainly we're not yet allowed to play music in clubs. There's a lot of outdoor music happening. I live in a neighborhood in Brooklyn where there's a mix of apartment buildings and old Victorian houses with front porches. Like I live in an apartment building, so I don't have a porch, but a lot of the people who have these porches and who live in the more, you know, in the less dense neighborhoods surrounding here are doing like porch concerts, just formal and informal, just, people showing up on the porch to jam or to, to just to do I did one of those. My friends Coco and Bruce Wilde from Ditmas Park, Brooklyn, usually have a house concert series called First Acoustics. But
Okay.
since they can't go indoors anymore, they threw a porch concert for Father's Day, and it was lovely. It was so lovely to like be outdoors, and everybody's kind of gathering around in the street in a distanced way. You got people, halfway up and down the block listening, and it was really empowering and nice to be outside. But that's pretty much the way things are happening. There's street music in Manhattan, I'm told, but no one's allowed to be indoors, and no one's allowed to sell tickets
Okay. Yeah.
yet. So, but you can't stop the music from happening, which is
No,
encouraging. It's encouraging.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you've been doing some online concerts, though.
Yeah.
I read you did something for the Folk Project
Hmm.
Acoustic Acoustic Stay Away series,
Yes.
and then the Greenwich Village Folk Festival. Can you talk
Yeah.
about those two?
Sure. I had kind of laid low, in the early days of pandemic. Of course, I, like everybody else, had my entire spring touring schedule just wiped away, and I had more, and I was very disappointed because I had more on my schedule than usual, and I was really excited to
Mhm.
get, to get out. I had a few summer things on the calendar already, and of course that all fell apart. But the internet got real crowded in the early days, so
Right.
I laid back and I said, and at the time my husband still had a job, so I was like, you know what, we're okay. I don't need to be desperate, and I left room, or I tried to leave room for my friends who had lost everything. I didn't
Sure.
lose everything,
Sure.
so I figured. So I did a few things. I did Clearwater through a Mother's Day uh, online concert. That was my first foray into doing this. So it was a group thing. We had it was a benefit for the Clearwater project in honor of Toshi Seeger. Sorry, Toshi Regan is my neighbor here in Brooklyn, named for Toshi Seeger. No, for Mother's Day, so a bunch of us got together and did individual sets on our own Facebook pages. And yeah, the Folk Project concert came along recently. I think I did one other thing in the meanwhile. But yeah, Folk Project came along and said they've moved. They're in New Jersey, and they're used to producing concerts once a week. For years and years, Folk Project has put on concerts every single Friday night, and with that taken away, they call it the acoustic. They used to call it the acoustic getaway. They would take these trips to like a campsite a couple times a year. So they've rechristened the concert series
Mm-hmm.
Acoustic Stay Away,
Yep.
and the artists do that through their own website and own platform, and they bring the audience, which is fantastic. So it was really, really beneficial for me to have
Sure.
the Folk Project promoting that for me, and a lot of people at the concert, and it was a lot of fun, and it was my first full length one after a long time, so I was a little nervous, to do a full set, because I had only done
Sure.
like short things, like for the Mother's Day thing for Toshi Seeger, it was very short, and I did another thing that was very short, just in the round kind of thing. So but I'm kind of gradually dipping my toe back into
Okay.
online concerting, because it's a whole, there's this technical learning curve that has to happen too.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So you do see yourself doing more of that
Yeah,
coming up?
I do. I do. I don't have anything on the calendar just yet, as sponsored by uh, usual folk presenters. I think I may do a few things on my own. We'll see how that
Okay.
goes. I entertained the idea of doing a very late night concert just for the for the insomniacs like me, sit up in my dark room and sing mysterious and sad songs at midnight or something like that. But yes, I do. I mean, I'm kind of resigned to the idea that this is how things have to be for a while,
Sure.
and it's
Sure.
okay. It's different. It's
Yeah.
not better, worse in a certain sense. It's just different. Trying to
It's
look at it that
different.
way. You know.
Different way to get your music out to more people too, because your
True.
audience has grown immensely
Hmm.
with all of this online stuff.
Yes, theoretically, yeah. I mean, I'm sure I wouldn't have gotten, that many people in a room, for instance, when I did the folk project thing the other night. I'm not sure I could have drawn that many people into a room, or that many people might not have fit into the physical space of a room. So theoretically, yeah, you're wide open.
Yeah.
It's kind of fascinating. I had friends from Oklahoma, friends from overseas tuning into these concerts, friends from California, and it was kind of wild to think that we're all people from Canada, that we're all gathering in this room, and I'm playing music for all these people at the same time. It's really kind of fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. Turns out not to be a good thing in a funny way. That's for sure. Um, Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about your inspirations in life. Now you mentioned you draw some of your inspiration, your songwriting from where you live, Brooklyn.
Hmm.
What else do you draw your inspirations from?
Oh, sure. It's funny. It's a question that everybody asks, and it's something I don't think about too much. It's like,
Oh,
wow.
okay.
But no, it's a good thing to think about, because I'll preface this by saying I belong to the Jack Hardy Songwriters Exchange here in New York, and Jack was, I don't know if you knew him or not, but he was a cantankerous fellow, and he used to poo-poo the idea of waiting for inspiration. It's like, you don't have to wait for inspiration, just write, just sit down and write. You want to be a writer, just write. And yeah, he was a little gruff about it, but it's what I've come to do. He's like, if you bring yourself to the same place, at the same time every day, or you make a ritual out of writing, you will be a writer. And after a while, if you like, we show up once a week and we present songs to each other. I haven't been doing it quite as much, in these days. Like I mentioned, I'm not quite as disciplined as I was, but there was a time when I was disciplined. I'd show up, to write at the same time every day, and themes emerge. Like, you're not even necessarily looking for inspiration, but once you sit down to do it, themes kind of emerge, and you'll go through, I'll go through a period where I'm writing about external things. I'm writing about stories that I hear happening in the world, in the news. I kind of reinterpret it. Or lately, when I say lately, I mean in the last year or so, I'm drawing inspiration from my own struggles and my own I'm planning an album. I'm working on tracks for a record, and all of the songs that have emerged seem to be a lot about psychological states and a lot about resistance to change, and a lot about, I'm 52 years old. I am heading into another phase in my life, and I'm a little resistant, I must say. So I'm working through it all in songs, and there's a psychological bent to some of it. There's a little bit of a Buddhist bent to some of it. There's a little bit of a philosophical bent to some of it. So I think I'm, for the first time in a while, I'm being like completely honest, or I'm endeavoring to be completely honest in talking about, things that are going on inside of my own brain and heart, and hoping that other people can relate to that. So yeah, inspiration is mostly internal now. Isn't that bizarre? I'm becoming,
Wow.
Yeah, and maybe it's a result of, partly a result of what's been going on around here, and partly a result of what's going on already inside of me, that I'm, entering a different phase in my life. My kid is going to high school. I'm,
I can't believe how big he is, how old he is. Oh my God.
He's 14. As a matter of fact, I just kicked him out of the room before we started. I was like, I do not want, teenager in pajamas in the frame here. So teenager in pajamas is now in the other room.
Not allowed.
But yeah, it's like, it's a whole new chapter,
Sure.
So yeah, whole new chapter. So it's kind of like, I feel like we're in an incubation period. Maybe that's what it is. I'm kind of like inside of the chrysalis at the moment of my home and my family, and hoping to emerge and make something beautiful out of all that in the coming months.
I'm sure you will.
I hope so.
I'm looking forward to it. I really am.
Thank you.
And speaking about albums, Shiver, is that your latest?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the making of that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I needed a producer with that. I really needed a producer. I had worked with Fred Gillen for the last 3 records, and I love Fred. We are good friends, but even Fred was like, I think you should probably work with somebody else to get a different perspective. So I had this backlog of songs. Like I mentioned, I was writing a lot, once a week for, however many weeks, 100 weeks. I had so many songs, and I needed someone to help me wade through which ones were any good at all, and which ones maybe thematically hung together. So I called my old friend Joe Iadanza. I'm not sure if you might know him. He was on the scene as a singer-songwriter a while ago. I met Joe in New England, as a matter of fact. He was hired to open for Red Molly at a songwriter series out on the Cape. Tracy Delfino's series, and she had, and this kid Joe shows up, and we're like, who are you? And we became friends after that, after he opened for us. So that was a good 12, 15 years ago, something like that. And so Joe and I stayed friends, and I knew he was producing because he had helped Spite and Dival make a record. Now, Spite and Dival is this big sprawling group with, anywhere from 5 to 10 members, depending on the day. And Joe helped them make a record that was so so focused and so clean. The sound was so clear, and it was really, really, really good. And I'm like, okay, if he can corral all those people and all those ideas and all those personalities into making this really focused and smooth record, and he can probably do the same thing for my own brain and help me get everything together. And it was such a blessing, because we worked through all of the songs together, started with 30, 40 songs, and we kind of, narrowed the field to, okay, these are the best 20 of those. Okay, let's take the best 15. And then we finally narrowed it down to, what is it? 12. How many did we end up with? 12. Yes, 12 songs. This is Shiver right here. Woo!
Yep.
One. And Joe convinced me that he helped with orchestration, which was a huge blessing also, because I am often not real good at hearing what a song would sound like outside of just guitar and voice. Okay. So we hired a band of friends, and they joined us in the studio live. So all of the vocals on Shiver are totally live. I played guitar and sang at the same time as the drummer and the bass player. We played together, and it made, to me, the most cohesive record I have ever made, because it was like happening all at once. We overdubbed, let's see, violin and mandolin and accordion the next day, just because it was, we had rhythm section first, and then those guys played along to the tracks that we had made. It was so exciting. We did the record in 2 days. This is the least time I have ever spent in the studio in my life, because we had so much prep time. Right. There was a lot of time to work out the arrangements, and we had nice rehearsals with the band, and it was really an old-fashioned way of doing things. And it knocked me out. I would love to do it again that way someday. I won't be able to do it that way this time, but what a blessing to have, and to have another person. Like, I didn't have to be in charge. All I had to be was the performer. It was for the first time, really. I didn't have to be critical about what was going on. That was Joe's job. Right. Yeah. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I got to work with Craig Aiken, the bassist, Jagoda, the drummer. Eric Lee played violin and mandolin for me. Paul Silverman from the Yayas and the Slambovians played squeezebox, and my dear friend Catherine Miles from Yayas and from our own band, No Fuss and Feathers, sang backup for me. So it was just a stellar band and a stellar experience. And I love this record. I'm very proud of it.
Sounds like a wonderful experience for you. That's great.
Yeah, Carolann. It really was. It really was. And I'm hoping that, it's funny, like it was well received. So I'm real glad, and a lot, by the DJ community and, and by the community of presenters. And then when you're done with that, this was 2 years ago. And now I'm like, okay, now I got to do something else.
Yeah, do another one.
Now I got to, what have you done for me lately? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
How am I going to, I'm not, and I can't say, I'd like to say, oh, how am I going to top that? But I can't, you're not, it's like, right. I try not to think of it as like, I got to top it. I'm going to just write what's true,
Yeah. And they're all different experiences when you record and put something together, or anytime you create. So, and then this new one coming out, you will be doing now. Will you be recording soon?
I am already recording. I am recording here at home.
Awesome.
And I started before pandemic hit. I was already on that path, and I was kind of ready to be my own producer, I decided, and ready to do it in a slower way, and let the songs kind of unfold during the recording process. And I also wanted to up my tech skills. I have, a decent setup. I can get clean tracks. I will not mix it myself. I will not master it myself. I'll leave those tasks to people with more professional skills. But I can get a good guitar track. I can get a good vocal track. I can play electric guitar. I can play my own leads. I can play bass. So it's like I'm not going to do it as fast as the people that I hire. But I'm trying, as I mentioned, a lot of the songs are really introspective and really personal. So I'm I think it might be appropriate for me to be doing things in a very, in a really personal way and
Sure.
doing most of the work myself. I will, hire people for instruments that I cannot play. If I want a violin, I'm not going to try to play it. But it's unfolding in a really organic way, and it's going to be different. Working title is gracefully,
Nice.
for the record. And I haven't done a title song in a long time, but that is the title. That is a song that I've been tinkering with for a very long time. It's kind of encapsulates that whole theme of, moving from one chapter to another in life, and how do we embrace that with any kind of grace. That's what I'm exploring on this.
Okay. Okay, just a couple more things. I'm curious. Have you been involved in any of the protests going on in the city?
Yes. The short answer is yes. Very early.
Okay.
There was a few days after the killing of George Floyd, there was a demonstration in my neighborhood. And at that point, I wasn't leaving the house much at all. I was, going to the grocery store once a week, and that was it. But then when this demonstration was organized in my own neighborhood, just a few blocks from my house. Now, mind you, I live in a neighborhood that is heavily Black, heavily Caribbean, heavily Spanish-speaking, French-speaking, Haitian, Jamaican, people of color. My family is among the light-skinned people who live here, and I have been very aware of that since we moved in 11 years ago. And so I thought it really important for me as a middle-aged, white-presenting person to show up for my neighbors. And I'm so glad I did. I only went to that one, but I spent the whole day, basically. It started as a small rally and demonstration of mostly younger people. I was, most of the people were probably a generation younger than me. So that was really encouraging. People of all stripes, all colors, and everybody was masked. This was a big deal to me, that like all of these kids that showed up, all these millennials that people disparage and people say, oh, they don't know anything. Tell you what, these kids were so responsible. Everybody was masked. They were going around with water, with extra masks, with just making sure that the community was taken care of, respectfully listening as people spoke, and cooperating. And, with the police that were present, the rally turned into a march that lasted several hours, going down Flatbush Avenue into the deeper parts of Brooklyn. And things got a little bit hairy towards the end. There were a few agitators that I'm pretty sure came from outside the neighborhood to vandalize police cars and that kind of thing. I got out when that started to happen because I didn't feel comfortable with that. But it was overall a really positive experience, and I'm really, really glad I did it. And I wish I had done it more, honestly. That was the only protest in a walkable range for me. At the time, I wasn't taking the subway. I wasn't going anywhere. So I didn't go to the protests, the larger ones that you saw probably on the news and in other parts of the city. But I stand behind all those people who protested 100%. 100%. There were very small acts of vandalism. I won't even call it. Was and the good overwhelmingly outweighs the bad, and I am so glad that I did that, and so glad it happened here. I was really proud of my community. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could go on. I won't go
on. Well, lots to say about it. Lots to say. All right.
Yeah.
All right, Carolann, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for asking.
I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Me too.
And I wish you the best of luck with your new album. Can't wait for it to come out. So,
thank you. I will. I'm going to keep working on it. Hopefully, early next year. I'll say it won't be. We're rapidly approaching the end of the year, so I'll say early next year sometime.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, Delighted to see you, and I hope we get to see each other live and in person before too long.
Oh, I hope so too. Hope so
Yes.
too. And maybe one of these times I can really get you back to the series. Something will work out so I can get you in because I really want to do that.
The stars will align in the
They
new
will.
world.
They have to. They have to.
In the next chapter, in the new world, when we all come back to making music in person.
There
We
you
will.
go. We'll work on that.
We will.
So would you like to play one more song?
Oh, sure. I can do that. It's a little bit serious, but I could play the one song that I feel has emerged from all of this. How about I do
Okay.
that? I'm going to put this underneath the guitar so you can still hear me. And it's kind of appropriate that there's sound outside my window because the song addresses that. This is called Prayer for the Living. It was written in April or May, I think.
Okay.
In the morning, heavy shadows fill the space between the curtains and the wall. Through the window I left open, I can smell the rain that's just about to fall. There's a stillness all around, like nothing I have ever felt before. Such a stillness with no sound, echoes loud enough to shake my core. So I tremble in the dim light and I listen to you breathe until I rise. I move slowly, not to wake you, but the bed creaks and you open up your eyes. There's a sadness hiding there, one I've seen a time or two before. Such a sadness we both share, heavy as the bolt upon our door. As it was in the beginning, we are now as we were then. Long as there's a planet spinning, we will pass this way. Again, again, again. Amen. In the evening, we hold hands and watch the news until we feel we're gonna drown. Through the window, barely open, comes a siren from the street 5 stories down. There's a silence when it goes, heavier than what was there before. Such a silence no one knows, till you don't want to hear it anymore. As it was in the beginning, we are now as we were then. Long as there's a planet spinning, we will pass this way. As it was in the beginning, we are now as we were then. Long as there's a planet spinning, we will pass this way. Again, again, again. Amen. Thank you.
So nice.
Thank you,
So
Denise.
nice.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Carolann, and hope to see you soon, and good luck with everything.
We'll see you. Blessings to you. Take care.
You take care too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The night we met, my shoes were wet and my patience had run dry. You asked me in and wrung me out as lightning crossed the sky. It happened then. I knew it when you walked me to the train. I fell in love.